Hello, and welcome back to the Black Growth Gamer Online Summit. My name is Lana Garrett, and I'm a strategic partner manager at YouTube Health/Mental Health. Welcome to the Protect Your Mental Health panel, where we'll explore how gaming and its community intersects with mental health and how to utilize gaming to protect your peace. Today, I'll be joined by Hadijat Mukhtar Ladiju. So she is a licensed and registered occupational therapist, consultant, and a certified practitioner in accessible player experience, certified by Able Gamers. Next up will be Gabriela Mija, Right to Be Movement's Building and Communications Manager. As an experienced training facilitator and communication strategist, Gabriela has trained hundreds of people in person and virtually on bystander intervention strategies. So let's meet our panelists. Hello, welcome. So I'm going to
Hey.
go ahead and let you two tell us a little bit more. I offered up a really great, I think, spicy, saucy, amazing bio. But how about you give me a little bit more and give the audience a little bit more about who you are?
I'm an occupational therapist, like Alana has said. I have a background in working with people who have brain injuries for a couple of years, and then I kind of transitioned into pediatrics for the last almost close to like 5 years. And I've always, through pediatrics, found a way to incorporate video games and gaming, tabletop gaming, because as a gamer myself, it was just an easy connection. um, Right now, I do various consulting work for certain companies. I do consult with Sufferable, which is a assistive technology company. They were just featured in Microsoft's MS Build, and it's about remapping your whole computer to make it accessible for you, whatever inputs that you deem more accessible for you. And I did a little bit of consulting work for Deepwell, which they are the first VR mental health action game that is now available on Oculus right now. And I'm still in line and just excited just to help game studios, to help therapists learn how to connect video games and therapy together, and then also how to leverage video games for skill development, and any studios that are interested in combining those things as well.
Lovely. We've already agreed that we'll all be friends after this meeting, so
Yeah.
I'm excited to play with you. So, and if there's emojis, I'm not sure in this platform, please clap it up for both of our amazing panelists. Next, let's start off with how we're feeling. How are we feeling on the scale of Stardew to Elden Ring? How chill, calm are we feeling today before we get started in these questions?
Oh, I feel like I'm like that nervous right before you like press like start in a Dark Souls game. You're like, okay. I feel like I'm prepared, but I'm also like, I'm not at the boss level. I'm not facing any bosses. I'm just exploring right now.
Lovely.
So feeling great. Feeling great.
All right, you, Gabriella, how are you? Lovely.
Nice.
Good. Yeah. Let's stay in the
Nice.
Stardew. All right, so let's get started with these questions. So the first one is, do you think mental health is a topic explored enough in contemporary games?
Do you want to take this one, or I don't mind taking this one? Oh, okay. I feel like we are at the precipice where we're noticing that video games have a impact, because a lot of us now who grew up with video games it was a place where video games were viewed as a waste of time, or they're viewed as not something that could really contribute to someone. And now we are grown up and we can like forefrontly say, like, as adults, no, that was a beautiful time in our lives and that impacted me in such a great way. And now we're having people who grew up and are contributing to those data points. We have a lot of data being taken, saying that, you know, video games have helped a lot of gamers with their mental health, even with their cognitive health and their social connection. So I feel like we still need to do more, but we're just at the beginning. So I'm really excited about what we have in store in the future.
Love that. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
I
um,
I was gonna
I
add that
yeah,
I saw a lot of games recently exploring grief. Like that's like one of the biggest things I see games kind of like
Spirit
work on.
Fair.
Yeah, like grief. I think it was like Tales of Kinzaria. There was another game I played on iOS
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
explored grief of like a person like kind of dealing with grief and then going through it. And then there was like even a
Mm-hmm.
game on YouTube, not YouTube. It was on like some game where it was like moving, and then the person was moving, and then the person just slowly disappeared from their life. So there's been several games that I played that I
Mm-hmm.
feel like reach into those topics of grief. So,
Yes.
and that as it relates to mental health, and like I think that it helps
I
players like kind of grow.
I love the fact that you brought up like Tales of Kanzara, because I feel like in society as a whole, we don't really allow certain people who identify with those like points as like, you know, being masculine and still processing grief emotionally. And I feel like it was such a really good way to show this young man going through the grief of the loss of his father. And I played the game, and it's very much like it encourages him to feel and go through everything. It's not just like, okay, you know, you're a man now, you got to just, you know, go back to like doing what you need to do as a man, whatever. It was really much like, let's really work through this and how it makes you feel. And there's spots in the game that make you reflect and make you go through remember like really fond memories of your father and stuff like that. So, you know, I love that game because I feel like it's going to help a lot of people who may struggle with being open about grief and open about processing those feelings.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
yeah. Gabriella, did you have anything you wanted to add? No.
I was just
Perfect.
agreeing.
You're like, no, yeah, we all will play Tales of Sorry after this. Go through
Great
some
game.
grief, but help us get through it. So,
Mhm.
Hadija, the next question is for you. Tell us more about gaming therapy. What are the latest developments in this field, and how do you integrate this into your practice? I know you kind of briefly touched on this, but can you further, go
Mhm.
into this as well?
I feel like I touched upon it before, there's a lot more data points that we're taking on from like people who are actively playing games. And now we're seeing a lot of really cool things where we know that a game there's no video game that makes someone violent, and that has been dispelled as a myth. And we know that, you know, kids want to play video games with their parents, and video games could be a really good way for someone to connect socially to their peers. And, you know, I like to view it in my practice that video games are a great place to fail. They're a safe space to fail. A lot of things that you may want to process or, work on, skills you want to work on, a video game doesn't judge you, which is what I love about it. It's almost like there's this private place that you get to practice all these skills that are a little bit harder, and that could be cognitive, that could be physical, that could be visual, and that can be social and emotional. But here's the safe space for you to practice all these things with a skilled therapist and have fun while you're doing it. There's been a lot of really cool research out there, like Francisco Bacchi came up with this. I think it was published in 2023. He talked about using video games in the center of therapy and coined the term video game therapy. But he talks about this really cool thing where, as occupational therapists, we focus on activity analysis, and we analyze what are the barriers of this activity to make you more independent, which that could be social, visual, cognitive, all that stuff. But he talks about this thing, it's really cool. It's called the flow state. When someone plays a game that is at what we call as therapists the just right challenge, it can't be too easy, because then you're not really stimulated enough. You don't really learn that much from it, and it's not as impactful. And it can't be too hard, because then clients shut down. And then when you are in this heightened flight, or freeze mode, you can't really learn or intake new information. So there's that sweet spot of that just right challenge that you can have with someone while they're playing a video game. And as a therapist, I could be asking questions to them while they're processing stuff. So sometimes video games, for someone who's like neurospicy like myself, they're like a fidget for our brains. Some people might need a physical fidget while they're doing stuff, and it makes it easier for them to listen and attend. Sometimes playing a video game might make it easy for you to talk about topics that are hard. Or do you explore topics if you're like working on the executive functioning skills that, help us plan and organize and execute things. If you have ADHD, how do I organize my inventory and then apply that to my backpack? There are some things that you can do that are so cool, and I could talk forever about it, but I like really connecting someone with a video game that's intrinsically motivating already to them. So I might play a shooter game with them, or we might play Minecraft, or we might play Unrailed. We might play, there's a whole host of video games that do something different for every individual person. And sometimes it's a cozy game, sometimes it's not. But my job is how do we connect what you're doing in the video game to a goal that you want to do in real life? So that's all I can think of.
That's awesome. I need to either one, book with you, or three, tell my bosses or somebody, hey, I'm playing this to help my mental health right now. That's why I'm playing a game in the middle of the day. So, Perfect. So the next question is going to be for both of you. What are some issues you're seeing in the gaming communities, and what do you think is the best way for people to promote a healthy, positive gaming environment?
I can jump in here. Just because as you were speaking, Hadija, I was thinking of gaming and gaming spaces, the gaming world as an extension of our regular lives and our regular world. And I think in terms of the issues that we're tracking at Rate to Be, we're definitely tracking the same kind of racism, homophobia, misogyny that is present in other spaces of harassment, public spaces, schools, that is dragged into gaming spaces. But what I think I would love for gaming spaces to be more resourced with is the tools that we share around bystander intervention, showing up in support for those people. I think there's a lot of intimidation when you're witnessing doxing, when you're witnessing dogpiling, which I think we may all be aware of what doxing is. It's sharing information, private information online. And also dogpiling can be sort of coordinated harassment campaigns that are ongoing for the for a lot of different communities in the gaming space. So while it is scary to think about harassment also infiltrating our gaming spaces, or it is I know off-putting for a lot of gamers, myself included. I have brothers who are very into and have always kind of competitively played Street Fighter, and I was never joining them on that. They would play shooters, and I would not join them on that because of the harassment that a lot of specifically women also experience in those online spaces. So while that can be a bummer, I do want to share that there are bystander intervention tools, and there are folks working against harassment online, working to resource folks to be supportive. We have the 5 Ds of bystander intervention, and we've adapted them to online harassment. And I can share a little bit more about that later. But yeah, that's a little bit of what I think we hope can be done to tackle it and start to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I agree with everything Gabriela has said. Couldn't have said it better myself about the toxic things that we see in these gaming communities, and I feel like these are still issues, but I think in the gaming culture itself, I don't think we've really defined on a universal way on how to address it. So in some like sad instances, it's viewed as a normal thing. It's viewed as a norm, like, to be facing harassment, and, you just mute or you just block and go about your way. But then these, things are still allowed to be continued. And I really want to really take hold in saying it's really important to start shaping that gaming community that you want as a studio, for your players to be right at the beginning. Right at the beginning is the best way to do it, and then highlighting the good behaviors that you want to continue. Making sure that's like, and that's one thing I can talk about. A wholesome community that I can think of is Sky, Children of Light. Even their Reddit, their subreddits, like, so wholesome. But a lot of the things that they have done is highlight all these really cool experiences of people being good players, and that being celebrated by the studio itself and being shined and put a spotlight on. And it kind of motivates your community to keep doing these great behaviors, which is being a good and healthy gamer.
I love that. I hope maybe afterwards you can share some materials maybe for our audience, or, advice. Maybe we can send them along so they have the tools. Okay, so how can gamers find or create support networks within the gaming community to share experiences and advice about mental health?
Oh, I feel like having a space for people to find connection versus that's a little bit outside of the gaming self. Like, I love pet channels on Discord. It's almost like when you're able to find a connection to someone who you don't know, that kind of promotes that, like, that community itself. Like, oh my goodness, they're like cat lovers too. Oh my goodness. Or they love dogs, or, they love cooking. Being able to have some things that you can connect outside of the game itself is what builds those really cool, sometimes surprising long-term, like, friendships that you may not know. So and also keeping that space open and inclusive to everyone is, like, the most important. But having those little connections, I think, are really great for building that community. And then also having resources that are out there for someone who might be struggling, because I think sometimes, and you think about these Discord spaces, some people are faced with, how do I help my friend? And that becomes a little bit of like this traumatic cyclical response, because they don't have the resources to give that person. And then they take ownership, because when some person logs off of Discord, you have no way of reaching them. And it might be someone you spoke to for years, but you never had that connection. But having that resource of like, hey, I heard that you were struggling, or sounded like you're going through some stuff in Discord, please, here's this hotline, or here are these resources that you can point to for them to find help. Because a lot of people are struggling online, but giving the community itself education on what to give them out is, like, really important. And Gabrielle, I'll let it turn to you, because this is your thing too as well. You're all about this. Yeah.
I will say that I agree with you, and I think that a resource I want to zero in on is, Right to Be has a storytelling platform, but I think storytelling in general creating spaces for sharing your story, whether that be a positive one or of, hey, someone really helped me out, or someone like spoke up for me. Sharing those stories can reclaim the narrative around what's happening in our community. It can make people feel safer around that community playing that game. If you're telling them this happened to me and actually someone did speak up and someone was like, that's not cool. So sharing your story in those cases can be really powerful. And also, when you are holding on to an experience of harassment or hate that happened to you, if you have a space online and those spaces are being created where you can share it and you'll find support, as really as simple as a supportive message or someone sending you a funny meme afterwards because they want to cheer you up, that can make a big difference in terms of processing the trauma from that harassment. You know, I always like to think of the trauma from harassment as a wound. Sure, it might be for some of us, because we've experienced it so much, it might be a small wound, but it's not going to heal if we ignore it. Mm-hmm. We have to tend to it. We have to clean it. So what that means to me, and that metaphor in my head, is I need to acknowledge that it happened, and also acknowledge that I'm having fun with this game. Life is wonderful. I'm really good at it. And maybe that's why, you know, actually, I will note there is an article that was recently shared by people in my organization with me that notes that at least with the Halo 3 study, a lot of the people and men that harass on that game are losers, as in they do worse on average in their playing and lose more often than other people. So it's something interesting to note that there is a certain level of like, there's a difference in skill level there as well, that they're taking out. It's a power dynamic. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I think I read something similar to that. Yeah, and I don't know if the audio cut out, but I want to know. I know what you were saying. You're saying the people who are doing the harassment are actually not great players. It reflects in their skill. But I just want to make sure I highlight that really awesome point, because sometimes people take out their frustrations on other people, and it has nothing to do with the person who's being harassed. It has everything to do with the person inside who's doing the harassing.
Right.
Yeah. I think the quote is like, hurt people hurt people. So I'm going to move on to the next question, which is, remembering ally is a verb. When someone is targeted by harassment, what can I or the audience do to support or mitigate that situation? And I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me all right? Mm-hmm. By the way, you said the article. All right. You can go.
Oh, no. It's just I tend to like verbally say yes. It's the whole active listening.
And just also, FYI, this is our last question. So yeah.
Okay. So real quick, I think because you are, I would love to hear your thoughts on it, and I'll just sprinkle a little bit about. I really love the words that ally is a verb. I am a total believer, and you do not assign that title to yourself. Your actions perceive and your actions show that you're an ally, and usually that's something that as an ally you need to also know. You're not infallible. You will make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but being open to learning and decentering yourself, especially when you're trying to be an ally to community, is very important. And you cannot call yourself an ally. Your actions will precede that for you. And also everything what Gabriella says, reaching out and checking in with that person privately who's just gone through the harassment. Also speaking up if you feel comfortable, and be like, hey man, that's not cool, like that's unnecessary. Taking the attention off of the person who's being harassed is a really good way to do that. And that could just be asking the person who's doing the harassing questions, like, what are you getting out of this? I'm here to play a game. Like, I just want to play this game, and I'm cool with leaving this lobby. Everyone else want to leave this lobby. I'm tired. Like, taking the tension off of the person's being harassed is also a great way to doing it. And then checking in and doing a debrief on, like, how that made everyone feel. I'll let you go, Gabriella.
I think, we need to talk more about what I'm about to share, because you were already diving into what I have to share, which is bystander intervention, which I've said before, and that is something that we've been doing for each other as humans forever. It's when we see a situation of something going wrong, we step in and we do something for it. We support each other. And in moments of like emergency, we know to call 911. But in moments of harassment, a lot of us sort of freeze and we're at a loss for what to say or what to do. So what we hope to provide, at least with Right to Be, is 5 options, 5 ways.
I can hear her.
I can hear.
So it looks like we lost a little bit, but Hadijat, is there anything you want to relay that from Gabriella's side of it?
I think we should all definitely take the time to go and visit Gabriella's like organization and learn about those 5 ways to interact with her, someone who's being harassed. They sound like an awesome, amazing points that I don't want to misspeak. But action points give people a heading, and knowing where to start is just the best way to start. So go out and find that information. And you can also find us on our LinkedIn profiles that we posted in this summit and forum. Feel free to reach out to both of us, and I'll pass the mic to you.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you both for joining. So sorry about the ending, but thank you, audience, for joining. And you can find them on LinkedIn. Just look up their names, and on their other social platforms as well. Please stick around because there's so much more to do. There's a lot coming up, a networking session. There'll be a short break, and just make sure your profiles are updated for the networking session. But other than that, we appreciate you, and we hope that you'll take our tips and these questions and use them on your way out. So we're going to all wave out to the audience now. So goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you next time.